Kia ora, good morning everyone, Richard here, welcome back to the channel. Today we are checking out a brand new full frame lens from TTArtisan. This is the TTArtisan AF 40mm f2. Like the name suggests, it is an autofocus lens. When I'm recording this review, this lens is available for the Nikon Z and the Sony E-mount, but the L-mount version will also be coming in the near future. And the price of this lens is just US $168, which makes it one of the most affordable autofocus full-frame f2 lens out there right now. And just the usual disclaimers before we start, TTArtisan did send me this lens for the review and I don't need to return it. But I didn't get paid for this review. As always, everything I share is my honest opinion. When TTArtisan first reached out and told me about this lens, the thing that really caught my attention was the size. I mean, look at how small it is. It is a full frame lens with autofocus and f2 maximum aperture, but it is tiny. It is about the size as my Sigma 45mm f2.8, which is already one of the smallest autofocus lenses out there. But this TTArtisan is a full stop faster, so it is very impressive. The build quality of this lens is very good, especially considering the price. The lens is made entirely of metal and it feels really solid in the hand. One of the reasons I've always liked TTArtisan lenses is that they often feel way better than their price would suggest, and this one is no exception. And another nice surprise, this lens has an aperture ring, something you rarely see on budget lenses. The aperture ring has clicks, 3 clicks per stop, and there's also an 8 position if you prefer to control the aperture from the camera. The lens hood is metal too. It is removable, reversible, and it matches the build quality of the lens itself. Overall, the lens just feels well put together. Definitely feels more premium than its $168 price tag. Now, this is not a weather-sealed lens, something you need to keep in mind. If you need to update the firmware, TTArtisan has included a rear lens cap that doubles as the USB-C docking station, which I think is a very cool design. But I know some of you may not really like it because you worry that you may lose that rear lens cap and can't update firmware in the future. If that's the case, I suggest you to just buy a generic rear lens cap. They are usually just a few dollars, so you can just keep the original lens cap in the box. And even though the lens is all metal, because it's so compact, it only weighs around 170 grams, which is really lightweight. I've been pairing it with my Sony a7CR, and it is a really small portable combo. If you are a L-mount shooter, I think this lens would be a great match for the Lumix S9 or the Sigma BF. When you shoot photo, autofocus. Okay, now I have to re-record this part of the review because when I first received the lens, I was not really impressed by the lens autofocus performance when taking photo. Autofocus was a bit noisy and also it was quite slow. But when I was halfway editing the video, TTArtisan they sent me a new firmware and that has significantly improved the photo mode autofocus performance. Autofocus is now very fast and also is a lot more quiet as well. So now with the new firmware, I'm pretty happy with this lens autofocus performance when shooting photos. For video, look at this video autofocus test I shot at the maximum aperture with my Sony a7CR. The autofocus is very smooth and it follows me very nicely using human detection. It is also very responsive as well, so I'm pretty happy with that. There also isn't any noticeable autofocus noise when shooting video. I noticed a bit of focus breathing when I did my 1m to 20m focus breathing test, but the amount is quite acceptable. Now let's have a look at the image sharpness. I done all these tests with my 61 megapixel Sony a7CR, so it's a pretty tough test for this $168 lens. If you zoom in the center of the photo, at f2, the center sharpness is already not bad. I won't say it is super sharp, but it is sharp enough even for the 61 megapixel a7CR. Stop down to f4, then the center sharpness becomes excellent. Center sharpness remains excellent until f11, then diffraction was starting to soften the image. Corner is a bit soft at wide open. We need to stop down the lens to around f8 to get good corner sharpness. But if you stop down the lens further, diffraction would make the corner softer. So if good corner sharpness is important to you, then f8 is the sweet spot. The minimum focus distance of this TTArtisan lens is 40 cm, or just under 16 inches. The maximum magnification is approximately 0.1 time from my own measurements. It is okay, not great but not terrible. When shooting at the minimum focus distance at f2, it is a bit soft, but again it is not terrible. For example, my Sigma 45mm f2.8, when you are shooting at the minimum focus distance, it will be softer than this TTArtisan lens. If you want to have better image sharpness, you can stop down the lens a little bit, even just to f2.8, you can get some noticeable improvement in terms of image sharpness. With the f2 aperture, it's quite easy to blur the background when you are shooting at close distance. And when you do that, the dissolved background looks quite pleasant. It's not that ultra dreamy, buttery smooth kind of bokeh, partly because the focal length is only 40mm, but it also doesn't have those harsh or nervous look either. The bokeh balls near the corners are not perfectly round, but there's no crazy swirly effect. So overall, I say the bokeh is quite pleasant in most situations. Vignetting performance of this lens is average. When you are shooting at wide open, you can see quite a bit of dark corner, and even when you stop down the lens, you will still see quite a bit of vignetting. When shooting at f2, you may notice some color fringing, especially around high contrast areas. It's not unusual for a budget f2 lens to show some color fringing, but this TTArtisan shows a little bit more than I expected. Distortion control is excellent. Even when shooting the brick wall test photo, I noticed almost no visible distortion. So even if you're using this lens to shoot some architectural or anything that has a straight line across the frame, you still shouldn't have any issues at all. Lens flare used to be a major weakness for TTArtisan, but they have made some noticeable improvements over the past year or so. With this new AF 40mm f2, lens flare control is not bad. You might still see a slight drop off in contrast when shooting into a strong light source, but the amount of lens flare is generally well controlled. Personally, I think the small amount of lens flare adds a bit of character to the image. Sunstars starting to appear from around f8, but the tails would spread out quite a bit until we reach the minimum aperture f16, then the tails become sharp and pointy. So overall, while this lens would not be my first choice if I want some beautiful Sunstars, but I think the Sunstars still look okay. One of the big problems when shooting with full frame cameras is that the lenses are usually quite big and heavy. So even if you are using a small camera like the Sony a7CR or the Lumix S9, once you put a lens on it, the whole setup becomes quite bulky, and that kind of defeats the purpose of having a compact camera. So when TTArtisan told me about this lens, I was really excited, especially because it has a f2 maximum aperture, and with a full metal build and the price tag under $170, this lens is really a great bargain. Now in terms of image quality, I think overall it is acceptable, but there are a few compromises, it does remind you that at the end of the day, this is still a budget lens. So if you are super picky about image quality, this lens probably is not a great choice for you. That said, I got a bunch of lenses in my camera cabinet that can deliver amazing image quality, but I barely use them unless I'm shooting a job. It's because they are just too heavy and too big for me to carry around every day. I've said this a few times before on this channel. I really wish more manufacturers would make compact, lightweight, affordable lenses, even if it means sacrificing a bit of image quality. For my personal everyday photos, I really don't mind if the corners are a bit soft or there's some imperfection. What matters more is whether I actually bring the lens out and use it. And this TTArtisan AF 40mm f2 is exactly the kind of lens I want to see more of. But what about you? Is the image quality from this TTArtisan lens good enough for your needs? Or do you prefer lenses that are sharper and has less flaws, even if they are bigger and heavier? Let me know in the comments. I love to hear your thoughts.